Hello and welcome to our Medallion Racing in the Money Media Preakness Night preview. Peter Thomas Fornitel, very happy to be back with you, coming to you from the Brooklyn Bunker. As you can probably see, the hat right behind me says it. And very proud, that's probably not the right word. I am proud, actually. I'm proud to be joined by today's three guests. One is a mystery guest. I'll tell you, though, you can get it in one. We've got a mystery guest coming up who's going to be giving his thoughts on these races. But as far as our live panel today, very happy to be joined by a woman who in many ways is one of the key faces and voices when it comes to all things Maryland racing. You also know her from the excellent work she does on her own podcast, Talk Racing to Me. Naomi Tukker, welcome to the show. How are things?
Very well, Pete. You always make me feel so special and happy about myself when you introduce me. So keep on saying all these nice things. It makes me keep wanting to come back on the shows.
Fantastic. That's you got yourself a deal as far as that goes. And we also have from the Medallion Racing team, guy who did such a great job 2 weeks ago when talking about all of the Kentucky Derby stakes and the Derby itself with us at our live event at Malone's in Lexington. Stay tuned. There may be some more live events in our future. Philip Shelton, welcome back to the In the Money airwaves.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can come up with some winners. Michelle was the one that gave out the Derby winner, so she's not here, but hopefully we can channel her. I think Naomi, you had him in the draft.
I did.
I don't know what happens now with the investigation, if that's going to go the other way, but you can enjoy being the leader in the clubhouse for the trip.
For now, I lead the draft. Okay.
Well, we'll have to have like an arm wrestling match about the draft. Naomi does leave. Matt Bernier did have Medallion, but I think it's fair to settle like wagers settle on the parimutuel results. So you may be safe, but we may have to figure that out as we go. Of course, we're going to have many more points awarded in our internal draft and chances to bet on this Preakness. It's been a little bit overshadowed by the news of the week, but it's still, to me, the more I look at it as a handicapping contest, the more interesting it becomes. We're going to go backwards. We're going to talk about the late pick five, but we're going to start with the Preakness. And that mystery guest I mentioned before, we're going to bring him in right now to give his thoughts on this year's Preakness Stakes.
The Preakness Stakes is the final leg of this pick five, and the Preakness it has a special place in my heart, mostly because of it's got two really good kind of adverts, right? My favorite one is that half man, half horse thing that drank beer, Kegasis. And that was pretty cool. We should bring that back. I doubt it, but that'd be fun to bring back Kegasis. And then also one of my favorite phrases is get your preak on. I mean, can't get any better than that. I'm against the two Bob Baffert runners. You know, I'm not going to act like we don't all know of the news. It's not because of that. When Medina Spirit crossed the wire first in the Derby, as I was peeling myself off the ground because I needed Medallion, I said, this horse will not win the Preakness, and I'm going to try to beat him. Concert Tour, I don't see the excuse really for him. He just didn't run all that great in the Arkansas Derby, and the fact that they decided to not persevere with him and run in the Kentucky Derby gives me a little bit of pause. Was he tired? Well, is he going to be that much less tired now at a short price? Or was there distance questions at 1.25 miles, but not 1 3/16? One of them can win. I'm going to try to beat him. The two horses I'm going to try to use, one is a very likely one and one is a little bit of a longer shot. The 5 Midnight Bourbon, he was training lights out leading into the Derby. I liked him in the Derby, and he just didn't get a great trip in the Derby. I think he'll be a little bit more forward. I think he'll sit off of the two speeds, and what I predict will be Medina Spirit and Concrete Rose, not Concrete Rose, Concert Tour. Concrete Rose could maybe win this race. And I think Midnight Bourbon's going to get a great trip in here. The other horse that I like and I'm excited about betting as a more of an underneath type, but absolutely could win if it falls apart, is the 6 Rombauer. I think Michael McCarthy does a phenomenal job out in California, and I think this horse could end up getting a nice trip with some nice pace to close into and could come running. The distance will not be a concern for him. So Midnight Bourbon will be my top choice. Rombauer will be a horse that I'm going to be using. And in the multi-race bets, those are the only two I'm using. If one of these Baffert runners wins, I'll lose.
JK, bold words from him, looking to take on Bob Baffert in this spot. We'll see how that one works out. We'll see what the rest of the panel thinks. Naomi, let's throw it to you first. Have you finalized your thoughts about this year's Preakness?
I mean, first, the reaction to JK was saying all of that. Get your Preakon. Love the hashtag. I've been using it the whole time. Can we please just have some fun this Preakness? We've been, having to deal with, the issues that we kind of hinted at. I want to have fun, and Get Your Precon relates to that. Now, I love the fact that he uses Midnight Bourbon. I have that horse in second. I am trying to go against Medina's Spirit, but I am using Concerteur on top. I've seen him train throughout the mornings. I know he's not the same, breeding lines, but he reminds me of Authentic, the way that he looks. He's leggier, he's taller, he's that two-turn type, and he is keen in the morning. So Humberto Gomez, the regular exercise rider, the one who also sat on Authentic, Justify, he's basically sat on all the good horses for Baffert. You can see how quiet he has to sit on him and just, nurse him along to make sure he doesn't try and bolt off. Just a wonderful looking specimen. And to me, yes, I agree with what JK said. The Arkansas Derby wasn't a good race for him. He clearly didn't enjoy the fact that Caddo River went to the front and he got taken back. He tried, but it wasn't like he actually tried. So to me, the outside draw, the fact that this means that Medina Spirit, Johnny Velasquez, will have to go if he wants Concerteur to get a not so easy lead. Because if Medina Spirit isn't going to go, who else is going to actually pressure Concerteur from that incredibly good outside post? So to me, the post position draw has kind of helped with my opinion that I think Concerteur is the horse to beat in here. And I do use the number 5 Midnight Bourbon straight underneath because I feel like he is going to get that perfect stalking trip. Medina Spirit goes and Concerteur goes. Who's going to sit right behind him? If he gets away well, that's what happened in Kentucky Derby. Kind of got bumped around. According to Steve Asmussen, he spoke to Mike Smith directly after. He kind of lost his hind end, and that race was over for a horse that loves to be close to the speed. So I think Midnight Bourbon could sit that perfect garden spot trip, tip out if those two are kind of having it on. I don't think they're going to be an out-and-out speed duo. I think both Mike Smith and Johnny Velasquez are too bright for that. I don't think they're going to burn each other up on the front because that, decreases their chances as well. So I wonder how they're going to work it out and if indeed Johnny is going to try and go forward and pressure Concerteur. But Midnight Bourbon, no matter how that works out with those two, could sit right behind them and get that perfect slipstream. Also, what a wonderful son of Tisnow. He looks beautiful on course. Is a bit, vivacious. He's kind of the man. He shows it. He is quite keen on course. You can see him just kind of fighting his rider the whole time as he's going around. Steve walked him over for the Kentucky Derby walkover because he's a handful. You know what? I kind of like that in a horse. So I'm loving Midnight Bourbon and what he's shown me so far. Most people that follow me on Twitter must have realized because I put a lot of videos of this horse on there. He just looks so he's that quintessential perfect thoroughbred to me. Just that beautiful muscle tone coat. Hall of Famer Steve Asmussen is not unfamiliar with Preakness success. Rachel Alexandra, Curlin. I think he knows how to get it done. So I use him underneath. Medina Spirit in third because even though I don't think he's not impressive to look at, he's smaller, he's kind of shuffly in the way he moves, but he's got all heart, and that's what got him to victory in the Kentucky Derby, and the fact that Rock Your World kind of got bumped around and didn't go forward. I am trying to beat him. He's probably going to be the favorite in here. I don't think that's good value at all. If he beats me, he beats me, but I'm not going to be on board. Underneath, then I use Crowded Trade as one of the closers in here because I do think you want to start looking at these deep out-and-out closes. I feel Crowded Trade can just maybe get the jump on some of the deep closes that we have in here. And looking strong for Chad Brown, 1 or 2 for him. I think Chad Brown is smiling here, coming in here with 2 horses that normally probably wouldn't have been good enough to line up in this field. But yet he comes in here with 2 that are going to try and give him the victory once again. Plus, everyone's been repeating this. Crowded Trade, the exact same resume as Cloud Computing. Cloud Computing was second in the Gotham, broke his maiden first start, was third in the Wood Memorial. Exact similar scenario, and Cloud Computing went on to win the Preakness. So absolutely not beyond the reach of Crowded Trade if it does fall apart in front. To JK's tip of Rombauer, I'm staying away.
Well, we'll let you and he argue about that in another medium. I think you've identified for me, Naomi, what really is the key question about what's going to happen with these two Baffert runners who seemingly both need the lead to do their best. It's to me like such a question. You wouldn't think, I'd be shocked if they end up dueling, but I feel like whichever one doesn't go forward and tries to me, the one who tries to sit off is going to be at a disadvantage based on what we've seen. Philip, what's your gut as to which runner, presumably one of the two Bafferts, you think will be in front after a half mile has gone in this year's race?
You know, it's kind of funny. It's almost the same scenario as it was in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. You had Maximum Security, who really had done all of his best running on the lead. Authentic, basically the same. You would have said in order for either one of them to win, they're going to have to get the lead. They sent Authentic, they sent Maximum Security off, and his chances were just completely compromised. He also had Improbable in there, but it feels very similar to me. I think with Medina Spirit winning the Derby the way he won it, it just feels like he's going to be the one that's going to get sent. Concert Tour does have a race or two on his resume that says he can sit. I would agree. I think his best shot to win the race is if he just clears. I don't think that's the scenario he's going to get. I think when I try to look at the race, I would be probably against the two Bafferts. That may be a bad take. I'm probably more of JK's. I think for me, if you look at Midnight Bourbon and you really look at the Louisiana form, it just looks really good right now. Like Mandaloon was second in the Derby. Bezos ran big in the Derby. Midnight Bourbon had no shot. Hot Rod Charlie ran big. So the form of those series of races just looks really good. I think he's likely to get a great trip. I think I'm obviously worried about one of the Bafferts just wiring me. But I don't think there's any value there. I actually kind of like the other Chad a little bit, risk-taking, like very similar to Mandaloon. His last race was almost too bad to be true. His two previous races were very impressive, and he just didn't show up. He didn't have a great start. He really didn't have a great trip. He didn't have an excuse to run as bad as he did. But I think the fact that he scratched out of the Peter Pan to come here, I mean, that's a pretty good sign of confidence. And you're going to get a price. When you get Chad and Jose Ortiz at something that could be 15 or 20 to 1. And I don't think he has to be as far back as some of the others. So he would be kind of the horse I'd be one to just key around to hopefully get in the mix at what would be a big price. But, I'd be playing defensively with the Bafferts, but really trying to lean on Midnight Bourbon and my, key underneath would probably be risk-taking.
Let's take a look at a question, and folks watching along, feel free to pop questions in the chat. We'll answer what we can either as we go or potentially at the end. But Jerry asks if Midnight Bourbon can pass runners. It brings me to, I'm wondering if they were looking for sort of a garden spot, stalk and pounce trip. I feel like it's maybe more likely they would have opted to keep Rosario in the irons. I feel like going to Mike Smith for the big money ride, it seemed like they were not pleased. Some word from the camp, or maybe it was more disgruntled people who wagered on the horse. But it did seem like the plan A on the Derby for Midnight Bourbon was to go on with it. And he obviously, I think after that break, you described it so perfectly, Naomi, sort of getting knocked off stride. I think Mike Smith just in the moment went to plan B aboard him of trying to regather. And as you said, he wasn't able to do it. But I get why if a horse is a little out of breath or has lost their legs, they're not able to be aggressive. But I wonder if the plan here isn't going to be to dead send Midnight Bourbon and really take the race to both the Bafferts. I mean, I like your vision, the way you designed it in your head for him to stalk and pounce. But that's what I'm thinking. I think he might get super aggressive. And I think with him being aggressive, maybe whichever Baffert isn't leading maybe moves a little early. I'm going to play the race for a meltdown. And the horse that I'm a little bit interested in, and I definitely want your guys' takes on that question that came in. We'll throw it back to you for this. But the horse that I'm interested in to take advantage potentially of a meltdown is Keep Me in Mind. This is a horse who, while he had a very good trip, I think in certain respects in the Derby, I feel like he was against the flow. That was a race to me, dominated on the front end. He stuck on really well, despite being last, I feel like just looking at closing sectionals, he finished his race in a way that I think he could move forward. And we've seen these Derby, it feels like running in the Derby is a real edge for horses running, coming back in 2 weeks in the Preakness. They're so sharp. They've proven their toughness. And while I don't think Keep Me in Mind is as fast as some of the horses we've been discussing, I think there's a world in which the pace scenario, if they can go too fast as I'm envisioning, sets up for him to come running, for Rombauer to come running. And looking at what the prices were internationally, the 33-1 on Keep Me in Mind was just too big of a number. And so I'm happy to tell folks who are betting in a fixed odds environment to take a little shot with him each way. And then I'm thinking in terms of a bet like trifectas and superfectas to make Keep Me in Mind have to be there, probably have Medina Spirit have to be somewhere just based on his, numerical superiority. I'm definitely interested in the idea of Midnight Bourbon maybe being the best speed to kick on, and then mixing in Rombauer in third and fourth. That's what I was thinking. But what do you guys think about my notion that Midnight Bourbon might be handled very aggressively here? Philip, we'll start with you.
If I was on Midnight Bourbon, I would handle him very aggressively. I think that's a very legitimate concern. I think if you look at his real best races, you're saying, hey, can he get past horses? When he won the LeCompte, he was on the lead. I think, the way I envision the race is Medina Spirit goes, I'd be sitting right on his flank. I wouldn't let him get ahead of me because I would agree. I think, that's a very legitimate concern. If he wants to really just run past her or have to take a bunch of dirt in his face, or, if you sit too far back, then the other Baffert pins you in, you can't move when you want. He feels more of a grinder. So if it was me, I'd definitely be trying to be aggressive. And I think it does open it up for what you're talking. I don't think Keep Me in Mind's impossible. It's his third start of the year. And he had kind of that weird Oaklawn where they missed all the early preps due to the weather. He got knocked off schedule. He certainly could be a possible group. I think what you would say is once you get past the top couple, it's very wide open from a betting perspective.
What you've seen, Naomi, in the mornings from Midnight Bourbon, does he seem like a horse? I mean, I'm guessing from the fact that you like him so much, you think there is a chance I'm just nuts and he can sit kindly and make his move on the turn.
No, I think it's a good question to wonder. Is he the type that just needs to be very forwardly placed because he has that, high cruising speed and he doesn't tend to really accelerate, but he just keeps on going? Now, from what I've seen, the kind of sort of physicality he gives me is that he does have a good bit of early speed, but I just don't think he's as fast as Medina Spirit and Concert Tour. And I don't see the point of burning him up early just to go against out-and-out speed horses that have proven to be faster than him in the first quarter. So yes, you want to be within striking range, and I understand that they most likely are going to be aggressive. I'm just not convinced that is exactly what you do. When I say stalking trip, just sit on their toe on their quarters, sit right there, that you're only having to pass, 3/4 of a length. He has passed horses in the past, by the way, to answer that question. That's how he won his maiden. So he has done it in the past. Perhaps it's not his favorite thing to do, but he's got no other option here. So
yeah, you're making a good point. And sometimes sometimes it's less about can they, do they really want to sit and stalk as much as it is about can they be running as fast as they want to run so none of their energy has to get sapped out of them. So if he's running against horse, he could be completely comfortable stalking in the right scenario if they're going fast enough in front of him. It's a fascinating race. And I still think even if that happens, my meltdown scenario can become a reality as long as he attacks early enough. If the race can really take shape on the turn, and then maybe they could be vulnerable to some front runners coming through the lane. It's going to be it's fascinating from a handicapping point of view. Despite all the other storylines that are circulating, we'll see what happens. If we have some time at the end, we can maybe come back to some other audience questions about this year's Preakness. But I do want to. We have Naomi for a few more minutes, and I want to get her thoughts on a couple more of these races on Saturday. So with that in mind, we're going to go backwards, and we'll go back to the Grade 2 dinner party. Why don't we lead off the conversation on the dinner party by bringing back in our special guest from the planet Texas.
On to race 12, the dinner party. Has anyone said anything nice about me yet, or are they making fun of me every time my videos are over? They're doing that, aren't they? Naomi's the worst, isn't she? Yeah, she looks like a nice face. You got to keep your eye on Naomi. She's one of those sneaky Dutch. They say the Dutch are really nice. Not Naomi. She's sneaky. This is one of those races, right, where it's like for a long time we forgot that in turf races you can just use Chad and move on. But now he's kind of reminding us that now that he's kind of back in action. I think Kuramada for Peter Brandt. This horse is talented. Won first out in the U.S., came back at Aqueduct, was impressive as well. I think this could be an up-and-comer. But the horse that's already here, that's already arrived, is the 5 Sacred Life. I thought Sacred Life's ride last time wasn't ideal. Kind of got into a tricky position. Had a little bit too much to do, and the stablemate Raging Bull got a jump. I think Sacred Life sitting on a huge race, but I'm not going to give up on Kuramada as an improving type. Those are the only 2 I need. The other one that you might have caught your attention is the 6 Tukker. Listen, I think that horse might need a little bit longer. Just give me the 2 Chads and survive in advance.
There's JK getting on the Chad Brown train in this one, taking some shots at you. And he did correctly predict, Naomi, that you would have been the first to take a shot back at him. What do you think about his thought on this race? Can you go head-to-head with him here?
I kind of half agree. I'm on the bandwagon with the number 5.
You sound so disappointed. I mean, you really wanted to go back and take
no, I disagree so strongly with JK. No, I mean, he was right. I was taking shots at him. He's not here to defend himself. That's what you get, JK. No, Sacred Life. I'm on board. Chad Brown. This is going to be the second start for this 6-year-old after 216 days off. He came back firing quite strongly in the Maker's Mark Mile. 3rd, as he mentioned, Raging Bull had the jump on him. I'm fine with that. That was a triple-digit buyer he got for that day off a long layoff. I love the angle. 2nd off the layoff. Chad Brown will have this horse peaking. And this is a horse that has the strongest turn of foot of any in this field if he turns up peaking like I hope and think he will. So definitely on board with number 5, Sacred Life. And then I throw in a bit of a price play here. A horse that has to continue improving, but has shown to me in his last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starts at least, that he's really on the right track. And that's Bye Bye Melvin on the outside for Johnny Velasquez. Gray Emotion. He tracked a strong pace last time out at Keeneland at that 3rd level allowance. He was all out in the stretch. He looked like he was holding on, got nailed on the wire. He did the work. He was right there. Plus, he's a half brother to Mean Mary, who I do believe was 2nd in the Diana. Just absolutely out and out, strong, tough as nails mare for the same trainer. So Gray Emotion knows the family well, and I love what I've seen from his half sister. And By My Melvin, to me, has really taken the next step in his career.
I'll just interject quickly because I agree with your 2 horses completely. I really like Sacred Life. I think you're correctly identifying that was a big run in the Maker's Mark, middle moving, not in the greatest position, and staying on really well, all things considered. This is class relief for me. I'm on board. And Bye Bye Melvin, the interesting one at a price for sure. I feel like sometimes, especially horses coming from that training center environment, off a layoff, getting to the racetrack, they get keyed up. They maybe go a little too fast early. Maybe with that run under Bye Bye Melvin's belt, see a little bit of that energy meted out more efficiently, and maybe a better run is in the offing. I'm on your same 2 numbers. Philip, are you going to make it a chorus of 4 in the Sacred Life camp, or do you have some other thoughts in here?
You know, this horse could win, and I'm not sure if this came up as the toughest. I think it's a fair grade 2, and this horse is like knocking on the door of a grade 1. But if you look at his Oceanport that he won, I mean, that's basically the only stake he's won. When they run him in these G2 races, he doesn't run a lot, and he just doesn't win this kind of caliber of race. Now, his numbers say he could win. I just would hate. I mean, to me, I don't think you're going to get 7 to 5. I think he's probably going to be even money. I would just try to find an alternative. I think there's a world in which some like at Hot Brown can just wire the field. He's got, the fastest race on me. He's run 4 triple-digit buyers last time out, first start of the year. I mean, they went 22 and 45. He had no shot at that point. I think Flying Scotsman maybe sits further off this time. I think he's just kind of interesting. Like, I don't know that he's going to be a huge price either, but I just see a world where he just starts doling out, slow fractions, and he shakes loose. The other horse, I do like Talker Listen. last time I think got too far back. I think the horse that won that race, Masterpiece, is like a serious grade 1 level horse this year. I think they ran him once last year at 1.5 miles, which is maybe a little too far. But he looked like he had no shot going around the turn, and he ended up winning pretty easy. I think that race was pretty good. So I'm just interested. He's 8-1. Like, I'm not way against Chad, but I just would hate singling a horse like that at 4-5 that just doesn't want to win graded stakes.
It's an interesting theory about the class. We'll see how Sacred Life classes up on Saturday. Naomi, we're going to keep you for one more race, then we're going to let you get on your host of other social engagements. Move on your
social. I'm sitting here editing and writing notes and watching replays. But yes, I should grab a glass of wine. I was hoping you had like
a fabulous crab cake dinner or something, but
vegetarian.
Oh, of course, you're a proper one. You don't cheat and eat the fish like my wife does.
No. This actually came up when we did the Preakness preview. Occasion was like, "Oh, what about crab cakes?" And I'm like, "No."
No, there are good imitation crab cakes. There are good. Okay. There are good like vegan crab cakes. I suggest, and I bet you they have them in Maryland. I bet you somewhere in Hampton in Maryland you could find them. But here's what we'll do: we'll have you for this race, and then we'll have you text if you have a chance on your way out. Text me your numbers for the other 2 races, just so we can share some opinions. But let's very quickly talk about race number 11, the Grade 3 Maryland Sprint Stakes. We'll let JK start one more time in case he takes another dig at you.
All right, the Maryland Sprint, the third leg of this Pick 5, or the Maryland Sprint Match Series Stakes. Interesting name. The first thing I have to get off my chest is I think that they did this whole thing with Yodel A Who wrong. Okay, shouldn't it have been Yodel A E Who, like Yodel A He Who, right? Why is it Yodel E A Who? Come on. I think this horse is extremely live in here. I think this horse is going to run well. He ran well at Belmont last time when he faced 3 technique, got stuck down on the inside. Not exactly the place you always want to be, especially at some of these North American tracks and in New York specifically. And then the 5 Strike Power. This is a horse that was once on the Derby trail. I was dying for this horse to cut back. Then he did, and he just never really did all that great for Mark Hennig. I'm hoping maybe Steve Asmussen can kind of figure this horse out. He definitely fits in here from a figure standpoint. And he got beat by CZ Rocket last time, who'd be 1-9 in this race. And the 8 Special Reserve, a horse that Mike Maker picked up a couple of starts back. It won an allowance race right after he claimed him. And then this horse was right there with Flagstaff all the way to the wire at Keeneland in the Commonwealth. I thought this horse ran extremely well. He was involved in that pace. I love the outside draw for him. I think the 8 Special Reserve is the most likely winner, but I will be using all 3 of the horses I mentioned, the 8, the 5, and the poorly named or incorrectly spelled or bad attempt at a good joke, 2 Yodel A Who.
I cannot stop laughing there.
This video yet, and I did have the same thought about the spelling of that name. Naomi, we'll let you give us your thoughts on the Maryland Sprint Stakes, and we'll let you get on with your busy day of work. We appreciate you carving out time for us, but who do you think is going to win this one?
So I've scheduled an interview with Brittany just to talk about this horse because I wanted to talk about the name. Haven't spoken to her yet, but we'll have a chat with her tomorrow.
No, you got to tweet that and copy JK.
I have to talk about that. I don't actually pick him in my top 4, but just because of the name, I need to discuss this horse. And of course, she's done incredibly well. The fact that she claimed him and then he's really progressed throughout the levels and now lines up in here with her husband, Shelton aboard, who's a mainstay and one of our leading riders here. It's a wonderful story. I go with one of a couple of the same horses that JK is in, but I'll throw another one in there too. My top selection is the number 8 Special Reserve for Mike Maker. As JK highlighted, was right there all the way in the Commonwealth over 7 furlongs with Flagstaff, who came back to win the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes 95 buyer. I think that just franks his form terrifically. Love the outside post. Doesn't necessarily need to lead, has shown very flexible. Love that in a horse. So I just think that a lot of things are set up in the right way for the number 8 Special Reserve. I have Strike Power underneath for Steve Asmussen. Love the early speed he showed, but I might just change my mind because as I was looking at this again, I'm very good at flip-flopping, as you can tell. I have Lakai underneath in third. And the reason that I'm now starting to flip-flop is I saw him this morning, and I was standing at the gap, and he was coming back, and this 8-year-old, he's 8. This 8-year-old comes out, and I'm looking at this 4-year-old who's bucking and fresh and having a blast, and I'm like, and Nick DeLodovico, son of Damon, was there, and I'm like, hey Nick, who's that? Because not in the, like, I know what Lakai looks like, but I didn't think it was him. He looked sensational. Spoke with Nick about the inside post because I think that's a disaster for Lakai, who has early speed, but not as much as some of the out-and-out speed machines in here. I said, are we worried about Lakai's inside post? And he said, no, I think we can go forward. We'll hold our position and we'll come with a strong run. If we're going to end up being closer than we want to be, Horatio's not going to take back. This is a 6-furlong race. We're all out firing. And the fact that this 8-year-old came back from a freshener to get back to winning ways in the Frank Widely, to me, means everything, because he in the past has run higher figures, but he's just looking incredibly sharp, and I think you're going to get a big price on him. So definitely, to me, a horse for the exotics in here.
All right, Naomi, we're going to let you go, but we thank you for your time. Do text me your numbers on the other races. We'll roll through those. Folks should be following Naomi at Naomi Tukker, and you're going to see her on TV this weekend as well. Can't wait to get to work with you again soon, my friend.
Yeah, hoping to pick some winners. Deep fields.
That's the idea. We'll be talking soon, Naomi. All right, Philip, let's bring it back to you for this Maryland Sprint Stakes. Where are you in this field?
I'll be cheering for Special Reserve. The guys at Paradise Farm, they're partners with us on Horologist. They're also partners with us on a couple other horses. Great guys. So I hope for them he can win. I think for me, the interesting thing is there's just a ton of speed. Like every logical horse in here feels like they want the lead. I think you either play it one of two ways. You either say who's the fastest horse, who's the speed of the speed, or who can make some sort of move from off the pace. I'll be betting. I think Special Reserve's the most likely winner. I think he's shown he's capable of sitting off. The start they claimed him out of. He has a little bit more of an outside draw, which I like. But the two horses I'm somewhat interested in that are going to be big prices. The first one's Mucho. I don't know if he's good enough. And I like the rail horse too, Lakai. I think he has shown he can sit close. He's second start of the year. But Mucho last time he made a little bit of an early move and he just flattened out. That was at 7. I think cutting back to 6 is probably a positive for him. He's 15-1. I don't know if he's good enough to win in a spot like this, but I could certainly see him getting in the mix of what's going to be a big price. The other horse is another big price, and it's 3s over Deuces. Another horse that's just going to be coming late. First start of the year was at 5 furlongs, which is a very weirdly run dirt distance, and you almost never see outside of 2-year-old races. He made up 6.5 lengths the last call, and he just feels like a horse that's going to be running. I don't think he can win. But he's a horse I'll be trying to get in the mix underneath at, what's going to be a bomb type price.
I like your creativity and some of the numbers you're coming up with. I'm definitely going to be using on some of my backup lines. I actually like the horse that JK was going on about the name, and Naomi was telling us about the two. Yodelie Who, for me, it's just a question of the trip, because I think you broke down the pace perfectly, Philip, where I feel like the way I'm going to play it is, I think Strike Power has that potential to be the speed of the speed. I did feel like that was, it was a grade 3 in name, but I felt like that was, you got 2 legit grade 1 winners in there. And this horse was on the lead to the second call against them. That might be a subtle class thing that works in his favor. But I think that with so much speed, as you pointed out, that the 2, Yodelie Who is the one I'll go with on top, I think is going to be able to sit in the back of the top half of the field. And in terms of closing kick, I like the way this one shakes out on closing sectionals. And I think there's a world in which we could see Yodelie Who make an impact in this one. But you make some good points about why it might not be as simple as the way JK and I have it.
Yeah, and I'd be spreading. Like, this is, to me, just as a race, you could end up going 7 or 8 ways. I mean, if you look at it from a buyer perspective, somewhere between a 90 and a 95 like over half the field is capable of running that. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of separation. I would probably agree. I think if there was one horse you said if he runs his best race, he can't lose, it's probably Strike Power. I do think you're exactly right. I mean, last time when I was watching it live, it looked like he might get beat 10 lengths. He kind of looked like he was just going to completely spit it against, what are two really good horses. And he ended up running, he only got beat 3 lengths. So, for a race where it looked like he had no business, being anywhere near it at the finish, he wasn't beaten too far.
We got 2 races left to talk about. I got Naomi's numbers, and we're going to now move it back to race number 10. The Turf Sprint, 4:05 Eastern is the scheduled post time for this one, going 5 on the turf. And JK, what do you have to say?
Now I bet you Pete said something mean because I set myself up last time and okay, I deserve it, whatever. In this race, these turf sprints, one of the lessons I've learned in turf sprints, and I learned it back in my first NHC, is that although they look like they might fall apart and you can find a closer you can make a compelling case for, speed always seems to prevail in these races. They're so short. Getting position, losing ground is obviously important. And if you're tactical and you're forward, you're typically not going to get a bad trip. I almost won a single the 4 of the Critical Way. A couple of reasons. One, that race down at Tampa, the Turf Dash, that race has been pretty productive. There's only been one winner out of there, but horses have run well out of there and matched their figures, their speed figures, which is a big indication for me. Also, the Shakertown, although it's not a grade 1, it is kind of that jumping off season for like the serious turf sprint races to kind of lead up to that grade 1 Jaipur, the grade 1 they have at Woodbine. And so the Critical Way to me, out of that last race, I think this horse is extremely live. And if you look at who the Critical Way's been running against, Imprimis, Bound for Nowhere, those horses would be odds on in here. The Critical Way a little bit below the radar. So, look, I'm going to press the heck out of that horse in this spot. I'll use Boldor a little bit defensively. That horse ran well at Keeneland in the allowance race. And then I will also use the 13 completed pass to the outside. He's tactical enough to overcome that 13 hole. And so I'll use a little bit defensively. But I really think the Critical Way is just too fast for these horses. And to be fair, there's a lot of horses in here that don't have any chance at all.
JK and I reading each other's mail in so many of these races. I also had the Critical Way on top, as did Naomi. I just felt like the Critical Way might have the right combination of speed and stamina. Overall form and figures are very dangerous, and I think we'll benefit from a good, aggressive Saez ride in this spot. Naomi saw it 4-1-13. Philip, how do you see it?
Yeah, I wish I could come up with something a lot more creative. I maybe I wouldn't weight it as heavily towards the 4. I like the 13 a lot as well. He's got enough tactical speed to sit close. He feels like if you take his 2 dirt races out, his last couple races, he's all 90-plus buyers, and he's close to the pace. He's not on the lead, but he's within a couple lengths. You do worry, like I think in these turf sprints, you can worry. I like being a little bit outside, but you do worry about going 4 or 5 wide around the head of the turn, and the Critical Way just kind of corners well and opens up a couple lengths while everybody else is losing ground. That's a concern. If the 13 was drawn more inside, I'd probably make him my top pick, but I would agree. To me, it's those 2. I could be interested in using Boldor a little bit. Maven, the horse that won, got loose on the lead, but he really sat in a pocket the whole time, and they were just kind of well clear of everybody else. I think his run maybe was deceptively maybe just looks better on paper than it did. He was never getting to Maven last time. Although I do think Maven might be one of the favorites, but I would agree with JK that the Shakertown, when you look Bound for Nowhere and Imprimis, they're 2 of the top, turf sprinters in the country. And, the Critical Way beat Imprimis 2 back. So
it's a nice form line. That's a nice form line for sure.
So, I'd be playing them. I think the 13's interesting. I don't love the post. I like being outside, but I don't like being that far outside.
Philip, before we get to our last race, I did want to talk a little bit about our presenting sponsors tonight, our friends over at Medallion Racing, a group that you're obviously very well tied on with. I wanted to get you talking a little bit about how Medallion is different than other racing partnerships, and let folks know what's been going on with the partnership and where they can find more information.
Yeah, so we had the live event, which was awesome. We had a ton of fun in Lexington. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed with no masks if you're vaccinated came out today. So hopefully, with COVID trending the right direction, that's the first of many future events. But I was on an owner view conference with a bunch of different partnerships a couple weeks ago through Toba. And I think the biggest thing for us is what we just wanted to do something a little bit different. There are a lot of great partnerships out there. I think the biggest thing for everybody is you have to figure out what experience you're wanting to be a part of, right? If you want, and what your budget is. Every partnership, like my racehorse, you can go buy a share for $50. It's obviously a way different experience. West Point's a different experience. And for us, we just wanted to focus at a really high level. We have 4 horses running Friday and Saturday. We have Horologist in the Allaire de Pont. We've got the Grass is Blue and the Black Eyed Susan. We've got Candace O's in the Soaring Softly on Saturday at Belmont. And we have a filly Applecross and one other than at Churchill on Friday. So for us, we really want to be at this high level. It's only fillies. So like if your dream's to win the Derby, we're not the right
harder, much harder.
Yeah. Especially I was gonna say you could have Mouth that maybe she would have won the Derby. But with the system. So it's just how do we create this experience, right? To focus at a high level. And what we said is we want to only do fillies. It mitigates the downside risk. So you're not talking about, you bought a yearling, it never made it to the races. We only buy proven horses. So it's an immediate. We bought the Grass is Blue 3 weeks ago. She's going to run in a grade 2, 3 weeks later. It's that immediate action. So, you can check our website out, which is just medallionracing.com. We're happy, to answer any of their questions. I think that was a big thing too from the ownerview panel. Like Lori Wolf at Starlight was on there, Anna Seitz from Phasing Tipton and Greg Harvey. But I think when you're trying to get involved in whatever partnership it is, whether it's Medallion or something else, first and foremost, I'm just a fan. I'm somebody that grew up just betting horses with my dad and turned it into a career. But we're really passionate about trying to help people and really help you find the right experience. And I'm the first person to say Medallion's not the right fit for everybody, but it is the right fit for a lot of people. So we're really excited to get to do more stuff with you guys and kind of highlight, what we're doing and really just, like I said, we come at it from a fan perspective and how can we elevate, the ownership experience and bring people in at a price point that they can experience this, with which it would take 100 times their budget to do it on their own.
Oh, it's a really cool business model, and it's one we'll talk about in future shows for sure. But I'd be committing an egregious host fail if I didn't ask you. What do you think are your chances in these 4 stakes this weekend? Are we betting?
I think we'll go. I'll be quick. Applecross has basically been pretty hard luck in California. If you've watched the California racing and 2-turn turf races, if you're 2 or 3 lengths off it at the head lane, you're done. And she's a closer. We brought her to the East Coast, so she's going to run at Churchill. I think she's got a really good shot. I think we have a good shot in all the races. Horologist is training really good. I think Pletcher's filly, The Spice is Nice, is a grade 1 filly in the making. I think we're a proven G2, G3 horse, and we hope to be a grade 1 horse back at the Breeders' Cup. But she's come forward since her run. Like, we expect her to run a big race on Friday. The Grass is Blue is kind of interesting. Like, we originally were just looking to buy her as a play to take the blinkers off. And, Chad said, hey, this filly's doing really good at Saratoga. Like, she seems like she's moved forward since we got her up there, kind of a quieter environment. He said, I think I want to take a shot in the Black Eyed Susan, which obviously for us, we said, oh, that's great. But I think the thought is we want to see, like, she ran well as a 2-year-old without blinkers, put the blinkers on in the Busanda, which she won, but she was still very rank. She was rank again behind Search Results and Miss Brazil, which that form has obviously taken a big boost. And then she was wide last time. So I think she's got a shot. Candace O, I think that race is pretty wide open if you get past Toby's Heart. Toby's Heart's a legit turf sprinter. She's probably the best 3-year-old turf sprinter in the country for fillies. She's got to take a step up to 7 at Belmont, which I don't think is a given for every horse that they just automatically get to 7. This race is a proven case. You got a bunch of horses turning back from a mile or a mile and a 16th. But I think our filly, she wants to run, she wants to grab the bit and go. So I think a cut back to 7 where there's some pace. I don't think we're going to be very far off. We have Kendrick on, so I'd say we'll be pretty forward. But I think you let some of maybe the true 5 furlong horses go, and we could just sit right in that next flight. I think that's a trip she's been craving.
Love that trip. Love that turn back angle. That's one I'm excited to get involved with.
Well, it's always weird because at Belmont's a real place where you can get, I love betting horses like those mile and 16 third horses that come back to 7. I'd much rather bet them than a 6 furlong horse stretching out. In grass races, you really don't get a huge opportunity to do it because it's either a mile or 5.5. But Belmont kind of has that unique 7 furlong configuration where I think it can work. Not to say, like I said, that there's a pretty heavy favorite who's for sure the most likely winner in there. But, for us running third and getting that greatest stake black type, that's a huge deal, on the resale side when we go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. We are running out of time, Philip, but obviously we're going to talk about this last race that kicks off the late pick 5. Race number 9, 325 is the scheduled post time for this one, for this $100,000 listed stake. We are on the dirt going 6 furlongs. And for the last time, and I think he takes a shot at me in here, let's hear from Jonathan Kinchin.
Thanks, PTF. I think, sometimes you introduce me nice. Sometimes you try to be mean and bolster your own confidence by tearing me down. My prediction is you introduced me nice. That's my prediction. But if you didn't, I know where you live. In this first leg of the pick 5, I like the 8 French Empire. I liked this horse last week in the Vagrancy up at Belmont. They scratched for this spot. It wasn't anything outside of that. Marshall Graham, one of the partners at 10 Strike Racing, told me they were going to scratch to run in here. I love the switch to Brad Cox. This horse was running extremely well down at Oaklawn Park. I love the outside draw. There's a lot of stuff to like here. I'm going to be singled with this horse in multi-race bets. I can understand why someone want to use a horse like the 5 Chub Wagon, who's undefeated. But, people love those ones in the past performances. This horse is going to be bet. And the speed figures are a little bit wanting, especially if French Empire improves for Brad, which you'd like to think that she will. And then, I guess you at least deserve to mention the 2 Casual. I just don't think she's fast enough. She's been running well, but I just prefer French Empire. And I think there'll be some real opportunities to pick up some equity in this wager getting started there. So I'm sure Naomi has something more creative to say than I did.
Now, Naomi not with us, but she did send along her picks, and it's kind of funny because the name of the horse she put on top is basically what JK was accusing her of earlier in the show. Number 6, Don't Let Sweet Fool You. Perhaps a hunch play for Naomi on top of whatever form reasons she had. She went 6-8-5 in here. I was with JK this whole night, with the possible exception of the Preakness, but even kind of there too. We've been reading each other's mail. I thought French Empire looked very good in this spot. It felt like a confident move, scratching out of the stake in New York to come here for this. Looks to be training very well. Great fit on the numbers. I love the draw. Let's see, Philip, if you can bring us home.
Yeah, I like French Empire. I also like Club Car a little bit down on the inside. I think if you look at the race, from a pace perspective, I think the 5 and the 6 are both very fast early. They drew right next to each other. I could see a scenario where the 6 might just be fast enough just to clear, but I could see a scenario where those 2 hook up early and it falls apart a little bit. I think the 8's got good tactical speed to sit close and should get a pretty good tracking trip. To me, I'd be using the 1 and the 8. Just as a quick note, I remember when the Casual won the one other than at Churchill, and I think there was an OXO horse in there who was a big favorite, and Casual won. And I think Jonathan was on Fox Sports, and he came out and said, mark my words, this filly's going to win a grade 1. And they put her right in the Acorn, which was just – it ended up being too big of an – Gamine freaked and ran like a 110.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that race was just too much too soon, and the filly probably never – I mean, those were her maiden win and that start were her fastest 2 numbers. But, yeah, I remember watching that, I think, on FS1, and JK said, mark my words, this filly's a grade 1 winner. they threw her right in the G1 and ran into the buzzsaw that was Baffert and Johnny V. So
it hasn't worked out, but to be fair, she is cycling back into form, and she's still only a 4-year-old with 9 starts. So who knows? Form needs to elevate a bit to make JK's words come true. But
if you look at her form, I mean, you could argue that she definitely has the best form. I mean, she got beat by Kamari, who came back to now she got beat 4.5 lengths, but Kamari came back to win a Grade 1, and you could make a case right now like Kamari and Gamine are the 2 best sprinting fillies in the country. She got beat by Edgeway and Franks Roquette. Well, Franks Roquette was one of the top. She was probably the second best 3-year-old sprinting filly last year behind Gamine. So her form line is really good. I don't think she's impossible in here at all. And to me, like, I'd really be leaning on 2 horses, the club car and the outside horse, but I will be using her because she might be too slow, but she is rounding into form. And to me, this is class relief.
I'm convinced to put Casual in on the B line in this spot because it really just looks clear to me like she's been in some unfavorable situations in the last 2, trying to close into slow paces, really trying. And you make a great point about the form in the Kamari race. And just what if they do just go too fast? It's not the most likely scenario, but there's a world in which, French Empire lays a lot closer. The 4 and the 5 go, the 6 goes, and all of a sudden here comes Casual down the crown of the track. So I'm glad. One of the things I like most about these shows, it's fun creating the content. It's fun getting to interact with the audience, but it's also good to, strengthen up tickets with clever ideas like that. So appreciate that very much, Philip. Any closing thoughts from you before we get out of here?
No, I think it's I'll give a lot of credit to Pimlico. Like going through the races on Friday and Saturday, I mean, you got a lot of full fields, very competitive. I mean, on Friday, some of them, they're like the Hilltops, 14 horses. Some of these sequences are going to be really tough. I think, the biggest thing I would just say, and it's a throwback to our show last time, is just, the great thing about horse racing is you get to have an opinion and you get to put your money up. But you got to make your right opinions count. I remember like my strongest opinion probably all weekend was Malthot in the Oaks, and I just didn't win anywhere near enough money because I was like, I'm going to do all the. Now, if Mandaloon would have won, I would have absolutely killed it. Like I had a huge.
You and me both.
A huge double tied in, but it was like instead of just going and hammering her and really playing my opinion, I just keyed her in everything. I mean, I played probably $1,000 in Oaks Derby doubles and didn't hit any of them, and I only played her in the Oaks. So it was like I had the right idea. I just didn't have the.
You made a win bet very complicated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's easy on these big days because you chase the big score. Like that's the great part about it is, hey, this pick 5 could pay $20,000, especially if you get outside of a couple of the logical horses. But sometimes you're better off just saying, hey, where's my strong opinion and how do I play it? And
absolutely.
A lot of the time, I see the $20,000 in my head or the $30,000 or saying, hey, and a lot of the professional handicappers, they'd be telling you, well, just bet, play your strongest opinion and bet a $5 one or $10 one or.
It all comes down to gambling personality, something we talk about an awful lot on the shows. Philip, I'm going to let you. I think you had funner plans than Naomi having to go back and study and cut audio. So we'll let you get on to them. Say hi to the crew and thank you so much. One last question for you though. Tell folks your Twitter handle so they can follow you and any other Twitter stuff relevant to Medallion and TaylorMade.
Yep. So you can follow our Medallion Twitter, which is at Medallion Racing. Mine is just at PShelton8. And I don't engage as much as you guys do. I try to sit back. I use it as a great resource for information, but I'm probably bad. I need to do better so I try to stay away from controversy. So I don't engage as much. We have a few guys at the farm. Liam Benson is, I don't know if you know Liam, but he is the number one instigator on Twitter.
I have seen some interesting stuff from him. Interesting might be in quotes in that statement, but
I think also in quotes it says this opinion does not reflect anything else. It's the content of myself, but
that's fine.
We're looking forward to a great weekend. I think the great thing about the whole Triple Crown series is one that it's great racing at every stop, not just the the Triple Crown races. You go into Belmont, which is going to be another great betting few days. But it's just a lot of fun. Obviously you have all this stuff with the positive and the potential DQ hanging over, but it's a great 2 days of racing, and hopefully we get in the winner's circle. That's I'll sign off on that.
Yeah, we'll be rooting for you. We'll be rooting for ourselves. We'll do this again real soon. And there'll be a schedule. We'll have a lot more run up to future events, but we really wanted to do this little pop-up podcast. And Philip, so glad you were able to join us. So glad to the team at Medallion and TaylorMade for wanting to keep working with us. The best very much yet to come, but really looking forward to the season. Other thank yous, Naomi Tukker in her busiest week of the year, finding time to share her insights. I'm actually bothering her. We're going to do a little podcast for our In the Money Plus service just about the Friday late pick 5. That'll be up early tomorrow. For more information on that, you can check out inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. We'll thank JK, of course. Crazy week for him. Had some family stuff going on, and so wasn't able to join us live, but his videos were fantastic. That's great stuff. Producer Craig Gorbanoff doing a great job, being very flexible, pressing all the right buttons as well. Most of all, though, I want to say thank you to all the people who watch this live stream and all the people who are going to be watching it video on demand, and all our regular podcast listeners, especially, making these shows so much fun to do. Next time we'll get a bunch of questions. Maybe we'll get some more interaction going in the comments as well. A little bit leaner and meaner today, just for time concerns. That's going to do it. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.